It's gloves off in the AIM Technologies Bikesports Championship, as the overall title has already been sewn up by Joe Stables, as well as the Class B Championship as well. But his father Richard makes a long trip down from Yorkshire to see if he can sew up Class A honours. Can he take the final place on the Stables family mantelpiece this year? Let's see. The Norfolk weather might have a part to play in that fairy tale ending. Over to Andy McEwen, race commentator.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. The car's coming down to the rolling start with Joe Locke and Brian Caldwell making up row number one. Josh Smith and Tony Barwell are on the second row, ahead of Andy Chittenden and Chris Preen. Aaron Bailey and Class A contender Richard Stables make up row number four, with Andrew Kimpton and Julian Caldwell at the back of the top 10. It's a sizable grid though, but there is no Joe Stables out there. The champion-elect had mechanical dramas in qualifying, and he will not be taking the start of race number one. The rest of the field will though, and as the lights go out, it's not a great start there for the 44 car of Tony Bardwell. We are on board with him now in the 44 machine as he runs down towards turn one, and he lost quite a bit of ground there and was sort of, I think he got a bit of wheel spin, ended up clattering between a couple of cars. On the inside of him goes the number 3 of Aaron Bailey. Aaron Bailey therefore gaining a bit of ground down towards the Wilson hairpin though, and there is room on the outside line for Tony Bardwell to try and fight back, which he does, and he will retake at least one of those lost positions through the right-hander. Chris Preen there is the white, red and black car in front of him. On board now with Julian Caldwell as he rushes down towards the left-hander at Palmer's, and you can start to see those changeable conditions that Paul was mentioning possibly starting to have an effect. It's not fully wet, it's not even fully raining at the moment, but it's that psychological rain that can sometimes put the drivers off. They never know quite how much grip they'll have as they arrive at each corner. You can see there a bit of a tail slide on the way into the Agostini hairpin there for Caldwell, and that just means that he has to delay getting on the throttle, loses a bit of ground on the exit of the turn, and we'll have to try and regroup through the next sequence of corners. Here's the fight for second position though. You can see the race leader Joe Locke is checking out at the front of the field, but we're side by side for second, and up the inside he's looking Andy Chittenden. He can't quite get through ahead of Brian Caldwell though at Williams. Out onto the Bentley straight they go, the 48 car there of Andy Chittenden working his way down the Bentley straight, and after having a little look at the inside at Williams, that loses him momentum onto the straight, and so now closing in behind him is the green and black number 7 car of Josh Smith, who has a look at the inside, can't go through. The fight back though continues for Tony Bardwell. He dives up the inside of Chris Preen and is able to retake another position now that he lost after that slightly lacklustre start. Through the bomb hole they go. There is the green number 7 car of Josh Smith, and already arriving on his tail is the charging Tony Bardwell, who is almost going to get back into that 4th position here that he started in. Josh Smith has lost a position at the start to Andy Chittenden. So one black car was going forward in the shape of Andy Chittenden, another one, Tony Bardwell, was going backwards, but is now starting to regroup as we complete the opening lap. The fight for second streams through. We've got 6 of them absolutely together as they work across the start-finish line. And it is the 66 car of Brian Caldwell that still holds this second position. Brian, in his second appearance of the season, he raced with the championship back at Alton Park, the season opener, where he scored 2 podium finishes. Has yet to win a race this year, though, in this particular championship. But he, like many of these drivers, chooses to compete in several different series in these cars. They are eligible for many championships, and Brian Caldwell, a bit of a radical racing veteran, he made a bit of a mistake there coming out of the Wilson hairpin, had to move over to cover toward Palmer's. Just about fends off Andy Chittenden, but this is continuing to stack the field up. Something has to give here, surely, and up the inside is looking Josh Smith, but he can't take 3rd place away either, so in the end, the positions remain as they were, but very, very close together indeed as they work their way through this technically demanding infield section here at the Snetterton 300 circuit. We're on the longest of the 3 configurations at the Norfolk circuit this weekend, and it does look as though Caldwell is a bit of a cork in the bottle here. Again, Chittenden has a look at the inside, this time at Oggies, but there is still no way past into second place. Time, Joe Locke, 3 times a podium finisher this year, is starting to look ever more comfortable at the head of the field. Joe looking for his first victory of 2018, and already, look at that, that is almost an unassailable lead, you'd have to say, over Caldwell in 2nd position, Chittenden is 3rd, and Josh Smith in 4th. No one choosing to dive to the inside line on this occasion towards the complex. The left-hander at Brundle, the right-hander at Nelson, out over the curb slightly on the exit of the corner goes Caldwell. Brian Caldwell running in Class B, so too is Andy Chittenden behind him, but the green and black car of Josh Smith is a Class A car, so in theory he should be quicker than these two, and in fairness it looks like he might be, but he's just not quite able to prise the door open and work his way up onto the podium just yet. There he goes though. Josh, a hugely experienced radical racer, but we haven't seen an awful lot of him in the AIM Technologies Bikesports Championship this season. Good to have him on board for this weekend. He's going to try and slipstream his way through into second place here. He's looking to the inside line at Riches, but there just isn't the room, and with these cars and the high downforce nature of these machines, you can carry an awful lot of corner speed. That really does reduce the opportunities for out-braking manoeuvres though, and so often you have to force the mistake out of the driver in front to be able to find a way through. This fight for second though, I think is going to be fairly entertaining throughout the duration of this race. 20-minute race, of course, for the AIM Technologies Bikesports Championship as ever. This final race meeting of the season, in which actually a lot of the attention will be on the Class B battle. For now though, it is the fight for the second place overall, and up the inside finally has gone Andy Chittenden, and he moves into second position ahead of Brian Caldwell. So Chittenden works his way up into P2 and will now look to try and use the clean air to pull away and maybe even go after the race leader Joe Locke, who is running in Class A. I say it's the Class B battle, but we're watching it's the Class A battle that I meant for the championship, because of course Class A has been wrapped up by Joe Stables, so regardless of the fact that he's not out there on the circuit in this race, he has still scored enough points to wrap up the title with a round to spare. It's the Class A championship though that could go down to the wire, because Richard Stables, if he wins this race in this class, then he would in theory still be able to overhaul Lee Torrey, who was absent this weekend for the Class A title. We'll try and pick up on that as the race goes on. Now though, it's the third place battle overall that is looking the most entertaining, as Josh Smith, who is second in Class A in this race, tries his best to get up onto the podium positions. Richard Stables is currently only running third in Class A. That would not be enough, therefore, for him to keep the championship alive. He has to get up there and either win the class, which at the moment would mean winning the race outright, or finish second with the fastest lap. And at the moment, he does not have the fastest lap, because Joe Locke, unsurprisingly, has set that very early on up at the front of the field. Across the line they go then, so Chittenden now into second place, getting away here from Caldwell in third. Josh Smith in fourth position, looking ever more eager to try and find a way through, just sticks the nose out of line there up the inside line towards Riches, but he knew that that was never really on. He was just trying to distract the driver in front, and it may be working, because Caldwell is really having to get his elbows out here. Drives to the inside line into Wilson to try and defend. That means that he washes out a bit wide through the middle part of the corner, gets over the curb. That's what he did a lap ago, but as we saw a lap ago, he's able to get over to the inside line at Palmer's and just about cover off the move down into the left-hander, named after circuit owner Jonathan Palmer, of course, who's done a magnificent job with the Snetterton circuit and bringing in this Snetterton 300 layout a few years ago, which has proved very popular with the drivers. Actually, it's not exactly a high-speed demanding sequence of corners here on the infield, but it is technically challenging, and it does open up lots of overtaking opportunities. Down in towards Agostini is one. This is another one into Oggies, but you have to have had a slightly better run through the previous corner at Hamilton than Josh Smith did then. So still it will be the white and red car of Caldwell who hangs on to the position, but these two have done battle on numerous occasions in numerous different championships in the past of Caldwell and Smith. They'll be well used to racing each other. And behind them now they've got Tony Barwell, who in fifth position at the moment is quite keen to try and move a bit further forward if possible. Down towards the S's, and Josh Smith just a car length or so too far back then to really commit to the manoeuvre up the inside line. And so still Caldwell it is that hangs on, but this train of cars is getting ever longer now, because we've got Chris Preen, who is closing in, I believe, in the number 2 car. There he is, the white and red one. And then the all-red car, I think at the back of the group, is Aaron Bailey, number 3. So 5 cars now disputing the bottom step of the podium across both classes as well here. As I said, we've got a mix of Class A and Class B cars. That's often been the way in the Bikesports Championship over the years, that there's very little to choose actually between the cars that run in the 2 different classes. And especially on a circuit such as this one, which offers a bit of everything really. There are long high-speed straights, there are tight and technical infield corners as well, so regardless of what car you're in, there will be a part of the circuit that suits you. Through Riches, that seems to be part of the circuit that suits Josh Smith though, because he had a really good run. Has he got up the inside of Caldwell? No, not quite. Caldwell is still managing to defend quite nicely here, isn't he, this second position. On board with Tony Barwell now, the number 44 machine, who started 4th on the grid. He's running 5th at the moment after that slightly iffy start that he had. Barwell in the tow, trying to get the run down towards Agostini, whilst Josh Smith tries to do exactly the same thing to Brian Caldwell. In the end, I don't think any positions are going to change on this occasion. Smith, though, washes a bit wide. This could be Barwell's chance, except he too was wide of the apex. I think the rain was just coming down a little bit more heavily that time as they went through with the tight left-hander. Now through Hamilton, where you need full commitment through there. You need to know what grip levels you will have underneath you as you go through what is one of the quicker corners on the infield section. And they wind their way back through Oggies, through Williams, and here comes Barwell up the inside nearly against Josh Smith, but can't find a way through. Tony Barwell running in Class B. Josh Smith is a Class A runner, and he's really having to defend now, is Josh Smith, as they run down the Bentley straight, because he knows he's under pressure here from Tony Barwell. And as he defends, so Brian Caldwell is looking a bit more comfortable now in third position. Brian just getting his head down. If anything, he's going back after Andy Chittenden in front of him. Andy Chittenden has not yet actually had a podium finish this season. He's had a couple of fourth place finishes, if memory serves, including the third race of the weekend last time out at Silverstone. This could potentially be his first podium appearance. He's in second place at the moment. And that's just a class podium that I'm talking about there as well. This would not only be a class podium in Class B, but it would also be a race victory in Class B. There is the number 95 car of Richard Stables, the man who could still be champion in Class A, but at the moment is not doing enough, unfortunately, to secure the significant amount of points. He came into this weekend on 129 points. When you take drop scores into equation, that becomes 93 points, meaning that he was 19 points behind Lee Torrey, with still some 32 technically available, but he needed to finish at least inside the top 2 in this race to have any chance of taking it to the final race, and right now he is not doing that. So for Richard Stables, it looks as though his championship aspirations in Class A are gone. His son Joe has already wrapped up the Class B championship and actually scored enough points to win the championship outright. Now for third place in the race overall, we finally, I think, have the change. Yes, Josh Smith goes up the inside line and has found a way past Brian Caldwell. He sort of came out of nowhere, because the last we'd seen of these two, the gap had been started to grow between them, and Caldwell looked as though he was getting ever more comfortable in third position. Well, Josh Smith clearly over the first half of this lap has done a really nice job to close in and does now find a way through. So Josh Smith goes third. Can he close in on Andy Chittenden? We still have just under half the race to go, so there's no reason to suggest that he can't. And we'll watch his lap times now with interest to see whether or not Josh Smith, who is in the same class as Joe Lock, remember, the race leader, but not in the same class as Chittenden, the man immediately in front of him. Let's see whether or not he can close in. Check back in with Richard Stables, who's all on his own, really, coming out of the right-hander at Williams, back along the Bentley straight. Richard Stables, as I said, running at the moment in third position within Class A, and not really doing enough to even keep himself in contention to move up the order. He's really relying on other people's misfortune now to try and gain him a bit of ground. But even if he were to gain one position and get into second in class, he would still need the fastest lap point, which he does not have. He's a little bit off the pace this weekend. I think some of the slightly more powerful SR3s, for example, are maybe enjoying this circuit a little bit more than perhaps Richard's little PR6. But of course, Joe Lock is also in a PR6, and he is right now running away with this race. Across the line he goes. Meanwhile, up towards the Wilson hairpin goes this fight for second position. We're on board now with Tony Barwell exiting Wilson. You can see the rain starting to come down a little bit more heavily now, and this could potentially just catch a few drivers out. You can see he's having to sort of wipe the moisture off his visor there as they run down towards Agostini. He's just losing a bit of ground now as well to the cars in front. So Tony Barwell working his way through that left-hander. Up in front of him, you can see that Brian Caldwell is dicing away. Now, is that Chittenden? It is Andy Chittenden. So Chittenden's had a moment somewhere, because he was, remember, running in second position, but he's now back behind Brian Caldwell and presumably behind Josh Smith as well. So Andy Chittenden, who was looking good there for an overall podium, his first of the year, unfortunately, things haven't quite worked out as he would have hoped, but with the ever-changing conditions here, anything could still happen. So let's see if he can close back in on the cars in front. So there is Joe Lock, your race leader. Josh Smith is now second, Caldwell is third, Chittenden down to fourth, and trying desperately to regroup here and retaliate. That was a real shame for him. We didn't see what happened. Presumably, it was a moment somewhere in the wet, and Brian Caldwell nearly having a moment of his own there as he came out of Nelson, the right-hander, just ran a bit wide over the curb and the AstroTurf, which gets increasingly slippery as the rain comes down. There is Caldwell then through Corham Corner, this never-ending right-hander. You need all the grip that you can get. Then onto the brakes into Murray's. We're getting into the final third of the race now, though, so if Andy is going to get himself back onto the podium, he's going to move on here. Across the line they go. Josh Smith there, the green and black car, is second, then it's Caldwell third, Chittenden fourth, and then this fight going on for fifth position looks quite entertaining as well, doesn't it? That's being headed still by Tony Barwell. Joe Locke, though, is heading out of Williams and back out onto the Bentley Straight, where he is beginning to look increasingly secure now in the race lead. He built up that early margin, really has just had to manage it ever since, and that's exactly what he's been doing. Looking in the background there, we appear to have lost somewhere Brian Caldwell. So Brian Caldwell has now gone missing, and he had just inherited a podium place, of course, but unfortunately a moment somewhere out there means that he, well, has he dropped out of the race or just dropped down the order? We'll have to wait and see. No, we believe he's off the track, so Brian Caldwell out of the race, it would appear. Out of Wilson comes this fight between Tony Barwell and I think that is the number 3 car, Aaron Bailey, behind him, on board with Tony Barwell. He works his way out of the left-hander at Palmer's, down towards Agostini, down into second gear and locking up and running a bit wide, and is that maybe going to give the opportunity? Yes, it does. On the inside goes Aaron Bailey. Bit of a mistake there for Barwell, just locked up the brakes there in slightly damp and greasy conditions now down at Agostini, and through into the position goes Aaron Bailey. Bailey now gets some clean air to work with, see whether or not he can pull away, and if he's maybe starting to feel a bit more comfortable in these conditions, he could even go after the cars in front. Through Williams they go, once again down towards the back straight, and out to the original Snetterton layout once more, until we get to Coram, when once again it starts to deviate from the original line. So back down through the Brundle and Nelson complex, I should say, they go. And the red car there, car number 3 of Aaron Bailey, having gained a position, not yet pulling away really from Tony Barwell. We know the Barwell's had decent speed. Oh, there's a slow car right in front of them. That was somebody running into mechanical issues, and that very nearly caused all sorts of dramas then. So didn't quite catch who that was going slowly, but someone appears to be about to pull out of the race right in front of some of our leading contenders. That was a very near collision indeed. They all avoided it though, thankfully. Great awareness by the quicker drivers coming up behind to spot that slower car on the racing line and dive out of the way. Through the gears we go, just briefly getting 6th gear before they reach Riches, as we go now on to the final lap of the race. Now that is Josh Smith, who I believe is back behind Chittenden again now, is he? Yeah, I think he is, isn't he? So Josh Smith, who is running in an invitation class, in fact, this weekend, not Class A, and he has lost another position there, I believe, to Chittenden, so it's been a real topsy-turvy last couple of laps of this race. Meanwhile, Joe Locke works his way down the back straight. The next car in line is about Mark, but then, yes, it is Chittenden, so Chittenden's now back into 2nd position. So it's all changed around here in the final couple of laps, so Joe Locke is the only one really that's not been particularly affected by these changing conditions. He escaped the drama early on, pulled out into a nice lead, and really has never looked back, and he works his way now through Coram down towards the left-hander at Murray's. And Joe Locke looks as though he's going to take his first victory of the season. It's his 4th appearance on the class podium, but a first victory in 2018 for Joe Locke, who sees the checkered flag and wins race number 1 of the AIM Technologies Bikesports Championship here at Snetterton. It was a topsy-turvy finish, and it was really the fight for 2nd that affected the most, because 3 in 2nd comes Chittenden, and through in 3rd is going to come Aaron Bailey. So Aaron Bailey, the number 3 car there. So what happened to Smith? Josh Smith, slowing on the last lap, ended up dropping all the way down to 6th position. So Locke takes the victory, 2nd for Chittenden, 3rd for Bailey, 4th for Barwell, and Chris Preen is 5th. Josh Smith drops down to 6th, but is the only invitation class racer here, so he still wins his class, ahead of Richard Stables, Julian Caldwell, Richard Hardy and Paul Pearce. The class winners, well, Joe Locke wins Class A, Andy Chittenden wins Class B, and despite not being here, Lee Torrey has now achieved enough points to wrap up the Class A title, with Richard Stables only managing 2nd in class, but not getting the bonus point for fastest lap.
Joe, first win in Bikesports, how's that feel?
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, it was a harder drive than I expected. You know, the weather just changed randomly, and that top section up there was just so slippy. Like, especially in the PR6, it just had no grip whatsoever. But I could see the lads catching me, and then all of a sudden I had a massive gap behind me. So I think something must have happened to Josh. But yeah, it was an awesome feeling.
Almost back to a supercar.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, it's very similar. Yeah, but that, obviously with the conditions, it was making the car lock up, you know, all the time. But you know, It's one of them things, isn't it?
I think controlled and measured are probably words that we use to describe that one.
Yes. Once I was sort of towards the front, I just took it reasonably easy. So I saw him in front of me, and on occasions I was catching him. Then I was overtaken when it got wet, and then for whatever reason the other two I managed to get past them, and that was it. Yeah.
Good result nonetheless.
Oh yes, first time on the podium when it was deserved.
Excellent.
So cheers,
Yes.
thank you very much.
It was a bit of doing what you could there to pick up places, wasn't it? And then keep them when you were there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was just seeing the cars falling off in front of me, some having problems, so it's just being patient, picking my way through, and yeah, it was great.
Happy with that result though?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's been car's been great all weekend. Good setup, and so it's just being patient and just getting hours in the car, really.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well, after that race 1 result, there will still be a space on the stable's mantelpiece this Christmas. Lee Torrey taking the Class A championship, despite not being here this weekend due to drop scores. Race 2 about to get underway. It is gloves off. The rain is still coming down. It could be anyone's race, and everyone wants to end the season on a high, right? Over to you, Andy.
Well, we had changeable conditions in race 1, full wet weather though for race number 2, and Joe Lock once again on pole position alongside Brian Caldwell. Then it's Chris Preen and Aaron Bailey, with Tony Barwell and Andy Chittenden one to watch for coming next. Josh Smith is down towards the back end of the top 10 after late dramas in race 1, but the big news is that Joe Stables, the champion-elect, is going to be out there on the circuit, just not in his usual car. His car's still not ready after his qualifying issues, and so he has got behind the wheel of the number 98 Radical PR6, usually contested in by his father Richard. Well, Richard's sitting on this one out now that his Class A championship hopes have gone, and so Joe can have one last crack of the whip to try and get a good result from the back of the grid. Well, pretty torrid conditions here in Snetterton this afternoon for the second race of the weekend, the final round of the AIM Technologies Bikesports Championship. We're on board here with Aaron Bailey. He starts on the outside of row number 2 as the red lights go out. Away we go, and somewhere through the murk in front of us are Joe Lock and Brian Caldwell running side by side at very high speed down towards Richard's corner on the inside line. Though it is the race 1 winner Lock, I think, that will get through turn 1 in the lead. Up the inside goes Chris Preen there. He holds on to 3rd, so grid order by the looks of it that's for the top 4 as they run down towards Wilson for the first time, with the green car of Lock leading the way. He runs very wide though, but Wilson, look at that now. The grip in the wet conditions can sometimes be on the outside line, but I don't think that was an intentional run wide. I think he just locked up. Car spinning as well. That's car number 33 that's gone round, Richard Hardy. Luckily doesn't stall the car though, and will be able to rejoin at the back of the field. So already the wet conditions catching 1 or 2 out. Hardy has to now just very gingerly traipse across the grass. But yes, we can see the lead has changed. We've got another car off in the background. Where is Joe Lock though? Joe Lock, having lost the lead to Brian Caldwell at the hairpin, has now disappeared altogether. So Joe must have gone off somewhere around the first few corners. I think the black car we saw in the background that had been off was Tony Barwell, because he in the black number 44 car, you can see there, has dropped way down the order. Mark Grayson, who had mechanical issues towards the end of the previous race, is running some way down the order as well, and Caldwell's gone off now. Brian Caldwell's gone off the race lead, and Josh Smith goes around too. Well, I said that it was wet and slippery, but this is really challenging the drivers in the early stage. We've had about 4 or 5 cars off the road. We're not even halfway around the opening lap, and an awful lot of them have been potential race winners. Thankfully, Josh Smith will be able to rejoin. Brian Caldwell, I think, likewise rejoined from the inside of the road after spinning from the race lead. So that's 2 drivers already in the first half a lap who have thrown away the race lead. That all means that the red number 3 car of Aaron Bailey leads the way. And surely that can't be Joe Stables in second place. I think it might be, you know. Joe Stables in car number 95, the car that usually is driven by his father. Well, he started from the back of the grid, but remarkably is into second place already. The rest of them filing through. What a topsy-turvy start to the race. There is Brian Caldwell just slipping on the inside of Mark Grayson. So he has rejoined. It's going to be very entertaining now to see the likes of him and, of course, Josh Smith, Tony Barwell, all moving their way back up the order after their early dramas. But what a crazy start to the race. Caldwell nearly throwing its way again coming out of the bomb hole there as the standing water starts to catch him out once more. It's a real voyage into the unknown, but Caldwell, despite the spin, seems to have decent confidence. Drives around the outside of Paul Pierce there, the 42 car at Coram, gains another position. And so Caldwell, if he keeps on the island, should be fairly quick. On board with Josh Smith, he's going around the outside of Sean Peters now, the Coram right-hander. Into the inside, therefore, for the left-hander. Is that Chris Preen in front of us? I think it might be, in which case Chris has had a moment somewhere as well. One car pulling into the pit lane on the right-hand side. Couldn't see the number, though, through the spray, unfortunately. In filthy conditions, though. The race goes on here at Snetterton, and across the line goes Josh Smith, who we saw slowing strangely towards the end of race number 1. Early dramas on this occasion in race number 2, putting him down the order. He's still got the rest of the race to try and work his way back through the field, out of Riches, down towards Wilson. It's all getting quite congested in front of him. At the head of the field, though, there is no stopping Aaron Bailey at the moment. Joe Stables in second place is not quite able to go with him, although this is his first lap in clean air in second position, I suppose. Then third position coming through is that Chittenden, I think. Yes, it is. Andy Chittenden in car number 48. Then Brian Caldwell is fourth, and then a big old gap back to fifth position, which is Paul Pierce, is that? Yes, Paul Pierce, number 42. Then Mark Grayson, and behind him is car number 24, even Ian Charles, who finished a lap down yesterday, but he's running hell up the order now after other people's dramas. Then it's Preen, and then it's Smith. So the two cars behind these two are arguably two of the quickest cars on the track, but they're both trying to fight back from early dramas. Chris Preen, the red, white and black number 2 car, and the green and black number 7 of Josh Smith. They are definitely two to keep an eye on. They're closing in on the battle in front of them fairly rapidly. Through Hamilton they go, towards the right-handed Oggies. Already Chris Preen trying to get the inside there of Ian Charles, but not quite able to do so into the right-hander. What about the next one at Williams, though? Gets good traction off the tight corner, gets to the inside line, and sails straight through. Can Smith follow him? No, he can't, because Ian Charles closes the door, as is his right. This is a fight for position, even though these are not cars that generally would find themselves fighting for position on track. Look at that as Josh Smith cuts through the spray, and you can see the water coming into the car. You don't often realise just how unpleasant it can be to drive an open cockpit car in these sort of conditions. Chris Preen, though, is making good progress through the field. Now he's got past Mark Grayson too. That means there are 2 cars now between himself and Josh Smith. That's potentially significant, because as these two are battling their way up the order, they are also battling each other, and there is now a bit more of a buffer between the two of them. Brian Caldwell appears to have gained another position now at the expense of Andy Chittenden, so Caldwell on the podium now in third, but he's several seconds behind the leading 2, who are already coming across the start-finish line. Back with Josh Smith, who still hasn't got past Ian Charles and Mark Grayson, so those two, they're battling together, of course. That means there's a bit of a roadblock, really, for Josh. There's nowhere for him to go. They're running side by side in towards Murray's, with the outside line for Charles, the inside for Grayson. As I said, the grip often is on the outside line, particularly on corner exit in the wet, so Charles is able to make that one stick, and Smith now tries to pull up alongside Mark Grayson as well, and will succeed, I think, in gaining this place on the run down the start-finish straight. In towards Riches he goes again, and Smithy works his way up one place. Ian Charles, his next target as the race leader. Well, look at this. It looks as though Aaron Bailey is starting to pull away now at the head of the field. Aaron's not even had a class podium this season so far, but here he is working his way down towards Agostini in the not only class lead but overall race lead as well. I've had to tell a lie about the class podium, because of course he was 4th place overall in race 1, which was 2nd in class B with some other people's late dramas. So Chris got his first podium last time out. Coming into this weekend he hadn't had one, and is now looking for his first class victory. There's Brian Caldwell working his way through. Aaron Bailey, though, we're on board now with the man of the moment, who, so far at least, has mastered the conditions pretty well. He was quicker than Joe Stables last time around as well, so Joe is just starting to drop back slightly now. Williams, you can see they're going nowhere near the apex where the rubber is laid down on the track. It's very grippy in the dry, but in the wet the water sort of settles on top of the rubber and makes life very, very slippery going indeed. Joe Stables, you can see running side by side with someone in the background. I think that's about marker. I don't think that is for position. Joe Stables should be fairly comfortably in second. No, that is Caldwell, I beg your pardon, that's Brian Caldwell. I was thrown because Caldwell has pulled so quickly away from Andy Chittenden and closed so quickly in on Joe Stables. I didn't expect that. So Brian Caldwell at this rate could still be on for a race victory here. He's closing in on Stables for second. Could do with getting through quickly though, and then being able to go after the race leader Aaron Bailey. Of course, Stables running in a Class A car now, despite the fact that he traditionally runs in Class B, and it's a car that's not necessarily that familiar to him, so in these conditions it's understandable that Caldwell is quite a bit quicker than him. So Caldwell goes through into second position, now sets his sights on the race leader and the race victory potentially for Caldwell. Out of Murray's they go, up towards the start-finish line. back with Mark Grayson now as he rushes down towards Brundle and Nelson, and he was battling with Ian Charles. I don't see Ian anywhere around him now though, so one of them must have had a moment. I'm suggesting maybe Mark Grayson, because all of a sudden he's got Bruce Crawley there in the, Sean Peters, excuse me, number 6, not number 5, the orange number 6 car that's challenging him, and so I think that somewhere along the line Mark Grayson's had a moment, yeah, because Ian Charles is still running fairly well, so Mark Grayson's slipping backwards slightly. There is Ian Charles, in fact, and he drives past a red flag, so the race is being stopped. I'm suspecting that is something to do with the conditions, because they were getting no better. If anything, they were getting worse out on circuit. The race is being stopped. We now wait and see whether or not there will be time for a restart. It would appear not, and so we do have a result. It is victory, therefore, for Aaron Bailey, his first of the year. Joe Stables is second, because the results go back a lap, of course, so Brian Caldwell's demoted back to third. Andy Chittenden fourth, Chris Preen rounds out the top 5. Class winners, Aaron Bailey wins Class A, Joe Stables Class B, and Josh Smith finishes down in 8th in the end, but is still the only invitational runner, so he is at least a class winner in the last race of the season. Very difficult conditions, the right decision made to red flag the race, and the final victory of the year goes to Aaron Bailey.
Aaron, you were getting caught there at the end, so it's probably a good timed red flag, but what a race in these conditions.
Yeah, it was a brilliant race. I've done everything I could, but I was getting caught massively by Brian at the end there, and I wasn't feeling any comfortable to go any quicker. That was sort of my limit in them conditions. So it was lucky the red flag came out when it did.
It's not always about going balls out and getting your overs out. It's sometimes about managing, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think, I even think Brian had a spin as well. So it just shows you just got to be a bit patient on the throttle, and that worked out well for me today.
That's the last time we'll see you in the car this year. Same plan next year?
Hopefully, yeah, definitely. Thank you very much.
Joe, having stowed the championship, we came here wanting a bit of fun. You didn't quite get it in race 1 due to a mishap, shall we say, in qualifying, and then your dad gave you his car, and I suppose that's the way families work.
Yeah, thankfully he doesn't like the wet, so I got myself a chance to go out. I mean, if I didn't go out, we'd just be going home anyway.
Yeah. And I suppose your dad's championship hopes were over anyway, so it was time to go out there and show what you could do.
Yeah, he wouldn't win his class unless he got 2 wins, so again, he wasn't too bothered. So.
And do you feel you showed what you could do out there? Because you certainly came third in what was a pretty tough race.
I mean, all it really was dodging all the cars spinning off and stay on track, to be honest. But yeah, it was an interesting race.
Put that one down to experience and take the championship victory for the season. Well done.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Brian, you were catching him towards the end there.
Yeah, it was great fun. I think I got reasonable pace all the way through the race, but I cocked it up on the first lap, threw it off, and that made it very exciting for me because I knew I got pace, but the red flag came just that little bit too early, but I really enjoyed it. It's good fun.
You've got to have a good fight back in these conditions to go home thinking you've had a good day and a good season's racing.
Yeah, and I've had a coach who, and we've done these test days that have been wet. He's just made me go out, when people say, well, do I really want to go out in this? He just made me do it, and I think it pays off, if you just get the track running in the wet, you just feel a bit more confident.
Looking at you out there, I think it did pay off. Well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you.